Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Davey Deathray here with our guy Mark from Tales from the Shelf. How are you doing today, Mark?
I'm doing well, doing well. How's everything on your end?
Oh, it's going all right. Yeah, we were just talking a little bit before we got in here, and it's still excruciatingly hot out here, everybody. But by November, we should be good, so it'll be okay. It really is awesome here in the desert in the winter, I promise. But yeah, sometimes the heat can hang on a little long. But yeah, I'm really pumped because we're talking about, I think, two of the most, I think the most beloved entries in this franchise here,
For
and two
sure.
different, direct sequels that I think, like, of course, there's been a long love from the fans with the original Halloween 2 from 1981. I think for a long time that was sort of like, this is how you do a sequel. You just pick it right up and try to continue the feel and everything. And then Rob Zombie's '09 Halloween 2 had a small fan base at the beginning, and that fan base has been growing. So it'll be cool to jump into these. What are your thoughts on just kind of overall thoughts on these films, Mark?
Yeah, so overall, Halloween 281, we should come up with some abbreviations for these, by the way, because it's gonna get
Yeah.
tiresome. So let's just call them 81 and '09
Yeah, and
for
sometimes I call it RZH2 is like my
yeah, that's
little
that works too. Just for brevity's sake. But
Yeah.
so 81 is my second favorite film in this franchise. I really have always loved it. I've always had a connection with that movie. When I was
Mhm.
young, my family lived with my grandfather for a time, and I'll never forget. He had like a shelf of VHS tapes, and on that shelf was the Halloween 2 VHS, the with the green cover. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's like the neon green, and it's like Loomis and
Oh,
Laurie
yeah, yeah,
on
yeah.
there.
Yep.
I think it's like the
Yep, exactly.
Blockbuster release.
Yeah, it was a release they did, like, in the '90s, because 'cause I'm so used to that original cover because 'cause I'm an old
Yeah,
man, but
yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about. Different typeface, it's like
it's not this cover, it's the, like,
yeah.
greenish one, but that one is, like, seared in my brain. Just I couldn't even go near the shelf, like, just looking at it was enough to terrify me. So, I've always had a relationship with the movie, and then as I grew older, started watching things when I wouldn't get nightmares, and, really, really came to love it. Like you said, it feels the most like, H1 from
Mhm,
'78. It's got the same mask, it's got a lot of the same creative team, so as someone who's like
mhm.
a Halloween purist, I would say, uh, it's like the next best thing, basically. And then Halloween 2 '09 is a movie that I kind of wrote off when I first saw it. I wasn't into it. Like I said, kind of a Halloween purist. So like I see all that stuff and I'm just like, this is, what are we doing? But then, you and I are like in the YouTube and Instagram spaces and stuff. And
Mhm.
I watch a lot of content from people like, one guy who's been banging the drum for this movie is our buddy, Nick at the Lost River Drive-In.
Yeah.
Loves, um, Halloween 209.
Mhm.
And that passion for the movie really shines through in a lot of his content that he does. So
Yeah.
I'm like me and others as well, not just him. But so eventually I rewatched it like 4 or 5 days ago, and I really enjoyed it this time around. Sorry, this is kind of long winded answer, but
No, you're fine, man. Yeah,
uh,
we gotta lay down the foundation kind of and
yeah,
let
yeah,
people roll in. We'll say what's up to everyone in the chat once we kind of finish this little opening, but, yeah, man, keep it going.
yeah. So basically, it was just as I get older now, I've sort of come to I've come to a place where I appreciate things that are different in the Halloween
Mhm.
franchise. And obviously I always will love that first one, but it's like and it's why I've really come around on like Halloween Ends a lot too.
Yeah.
Because it's doing something different and it's getting weird. And '09 gets weird with it, and a lot of that stuff really works for me, and we're gonna get into that tonight. So I'm excited to kind of talk about my like newfound appreciation for this movie. I think it's gonna be a good time.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I'm super pumped because, '09 just celebrated its 15th anniversary. I actually hopped on that stream with Lee from Drum Dums and Nick from the
Yeah,
Lot for Driving. I think you had popped in the chat over there.
I was in there briefly. Yeah, I think I need to
And
I
it
need to
was,
watch the full replay because I'm sure that was a great conversation you guys had.
yeah, it was just sort of celebrating our experience with the film and, why we love it so much, which version we prefer, because of course there's a director's cut and then the theatrical cut.
Yeah,
And just sort of diving into maybe some of the stuff that was missed or overlooked because, I mean, just like any movie, really, not every single thing necessarily works. Sometimes people want to just throw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to like critiquing art or whatever. I'm not really like that. Even if I really love something, I'll still be fair about the things that like, either don't rise to the occasion, or like if I can understand why somebody wouldn't like it the way that I like it. I like
right.
things that are a little rough around the edges. And like you said, I like when chances are taken in a franchise, especially one that's this long and this just immense and full of lore and everything. So, I mean, when it comes to the original Halloween 2, that's the first movie I saw in the series on TV when I was about like 9 or 10.
Nice.
And I immediately got sucked in by Michael. It was like the tractor beam thing. I was so
Sucked me right in.
interested. Yeah, I was just interested in
Yeah.
his character. And then I ended up seeing, they're playing these movies on TV. And I think they did something weird where they'd play Halloween 1, Halloween 2, and then Halloween 1 again. So I watched Halloween 2 first, and then it went into the first one after that. So
That
in this
must have been
bizarre
confusing.
fashion, yeah, as a kid, I was just like, I thought the character was so cool. I pulled out the little, TV guide section of our newspaper, so I knew what the heck was going on and that I was watching the sequel and everything. Stuck around for the first one. Anyways, told my parents I want to dress up as that guy for Halloween. So we made it happen that year. So I mean, that's the beginning of my Halloween love, is the original Halloween 2. Rick Rosenthal's Halloween 2, kind of. It's kind of Rick Rosenthal's, but it's more like Dean Cundy's Halloween 2,
Yeah,
and
that's.
with a little bit of John Carpenter in there, because I
I
know that
was gonna
he
say
shot some
that, man,
scenes.
because like
Yeah,
I don't. Obviously, I wasn't there, right? And I don't want to take anything away from Rick Rosenthal. I don't, but like he feels like he kind of acts. He like stumbled into directing one of the most acclaimed Halloween sequels. Like
yeah,
he doesn't, like I'm trying to be fair to the guy, but I think the only other movie of his that I've seen is Halloween Resurrection, which is
yeah.
which is a
Not
decidedly
good.
bad movie. So it's like
Yes.
I feel like he just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm wrong. Maybe he's got other films, but he seems like maybe like one of the luckiest guys in Hollywood from a certain point
Yeah.
of view.
And I tell you what, I think Tommy Lee Wallace is probably kicking himself in the pants because he was offered the
Yeah.
directing chair first. And I mean, I think Season of the Witch is really, really damn good, but he probably could have done both, and it wouldn't have hurt to have that feather in your cap, especially with Dean Cundy and, Dick Warlock in the leading role. And of course, we'll get into all that a little bit deeper here.
Yeah, we can talk
But
about it
yeah,
all.
yeah, absolutely. Let's say what's up to everyone in the chat here before we get going with the criteria. And then we'll let you guys know the full list of criteria, and then we'll jump into the first topic just so everyone knows what's up. So we got, let's see here, Lamontre Gillard. What's happening, Lamontre? Great to see you. Ashton Luck, one of our great channel members here. How you doing, Ashton? Hope your night is treating you well. Big Rod says, hit that like on your way in. Hell yeah, Big Rod. Another one of our channel members here. We got Ryan Swayze. What's happening? Gene Whitacombe. How you doing, Gene? We got Prince hanging out in the chat. How you doing, Prince? Hanging out in the past? Maybe he is hanging out in the past. I don't know. We got Erica, who also just became a YouTube channel member. Thank you so much, Erica. Really appreciate you. Adrian James, another channel member here, doing great. Adrian, really pumped to talk some Halloween 2 here, especially now that we're in October, right in the thick of it. Cody Snyder, one of our great Death Squad mods and channel members here, says, I love Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Rob Zombie is my dude, as I love everything he does. But I gotta go 81 here. All right, Cody. Yeah, guys, there is a poll that's open. We've got 23 votes so far. The 1981 sequel is winning in a resounding fashion, 88% to 12% out of 24 votes now. Very,
I would
very
have thought it would have
interesting.
been closer, man. Because
Yeah, me too.
the 09 fans are pretty rabid. Like they're
Yeah.
they're definitely maybe the silent majority.
Sure. They'll stumble into the chat, I'm sure.
Yeah, I was hoping it would be a little more even just for the sake of the discussion, but we'll get into it once we start talking about the
Yeah,
criteria.
we're just getting going. Yeah, so let's see what everyone says once we get going. Maybe we can affect that. And Cody Snyder just purchased or gifted a channel membership, and that one went out to Chud's Corner. So Chad picked that one up. Awesome to see. Let's see here. We got Aaron Click in the house. How you doing, Aaron? Always great to see you. We got Liana Baby Rage. What's happening, Liana? Hope your night is going well. One of our great channel members as well there. Ty Lee, these are my two favorite Halloween movies. I like 81 more, but I still love 09. Well, hell yeah, Ty. Hopefully this one is a fun one for you. And of course, guys, as we go through the criteria, feel free to chime in the chat. T. Parker says, I have both H2 and RZH2 near low in my rankings, but H2 is definitely or infinitely superior to Rob Zombie H2. Okay. All right, little bit of a hot take ranking there. I'd love to see that ranking sometime. We got Eli Cortez, one of our great Death Squad mods here. What's happening, Eli?
What's up, Eli?
To get ready for this one, I had watched the Steelbook, limited edition Steelbook that Eli had sent over to me, so really appreciate that one. Eli wanted to show that off there. Let's see. We got Dean Renner in the house. How you doing, Dean? So awesome to see you once again, sir. We got Ryan Olashow. Hope you're doing well, Ryan. Fachi Cinema. Matt Fachi, one of our Death Squad mods here, says 81 all day. Just saying. Fair enough. Fair enough, man. Let's see who else we got. I just want to make sure we're saying hi to everyone, and then we'll get rolling. We got Dave Vanderhoff in the chat. How you doing, Dave? Hope your night is treating you well, my guy. Let's see here. Brother Fluff Salisbury. Yeah, hope you guys do stay safe out there in Florida. Mark and I were talking about that before we came on here. I know that one's supposed to hit here on Wednesday, so it'll probably get pretty intense starting tomorrow, I would imagine. But yeah, hope everyone there is safe and all their loved ones as well. Blu-ray Addict says, I voted for RZH2. It's my second favorite Halloween movie. That is awesome. I love seeing it even out a little bit there, Blu-ray. So thank you so much. Let's see here. We got Blazer says, do a backflip. I can't do a backflip. Mark, can you do a backflip?
No, I was always scared to try. I've done a few front flips in my life before, though.
There you go. All right. So a little bit of it out of the two of us, Mark is the gymnast, but no backflips from either one of us. We got Necro Mechanimal in the house. How you doing, Necro? Great to see you popping in. And it looks like we are all caught up on saying what's up to everyone in the chat. So let me just do that right. Y'all. Let's go through our criteria really quick, Mark, and then we can jump in the first category here. So we're going to be assigning each one of these movies. We're going to decide is like each one of us is going to pick as a winner. We're going to tally up the score. If we end up tied at the end of it, the poll in the chat is going to be the deciding factor. So we're going to discuss the setup and the story of both films, the brother-sister connection, of course, the characters and performances. I misspelled this one, but the portrayal of Michael Myers. I'll get that one all figured out here. The mood and atmosphere / direction, the music and sound design, the VFX and kills, and the climax. So yeah, let's go ahead and get things going here with the setup and the story. Do you want to take that one on for starters, Mark?
Yeah, sure. So with 81, the setup and the story is pretty cool because it's like you got that through line. You know, it feels like the same night. They even start with footage from the 78 film, and then they kind of they go right into like new footage that looks, you know, and the best thing that 81 has going for it in many ways is how close it came out in proximity to 78. It's only from 81, only a couple years So as a result, you're able to kind of recreate that same feeling without having to do too much like legwork. Uh,
Hmm.
so a quick aside there, but so you've got the connective tissue, you go right into it, um, and it's all in the same night. And I, I don't know, how do you feel about that? Like, what's your thoughts on just rolling it over into the same night?
I dig the idea of rolling it over. I wish more sequels would do that kind of thing. I think it's a
Yeah.
good concept. It's all about how you use the concept here. And I think with me, um, I just feel like they don't really do much with Lori. There's a
Yeah.
lot of downtime in this film as a result. There's a huge chunk in the middle of the movie where you don't really see Loomis very much.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of like, walking and build up to like jump scares and kills and stuff like that. And, all those things like work pretty well. But if you do watch this back to back with the original Halloween, it does feel a lot more like uneven. The original film maybe takes a little bit to get going, but once you're kind of in it, you're in it and you just keep on
Yeah.
cruising.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
so I
they're
think,
building up that suspense and that tension, which is what that
yeah.
first one does so well. And I don't think
Mhm.
I don't think you've got quite as much of that in the 81 film.
Yeah, I don't think that you do. And one thing that I notice every time that I go back and watch that sequel from 81 is I want more Donald Pleasance like peppered throughout the film.
Yeah.
Especially if you're gonna like sideline Laurie, then I want a little bit more of him. We just get these little like, and maybe even he just seems so far away until the very, very end of the film. He's
It's
like completely removed from the story. So I do think that it would be a little more intriguing if we tried to get him to the hospital a little bit earlier, or maybe kept Michael away from the hospital a little bit more. I don't have all the answers here, but I do really like
yeah.
the concept of it being on the same night for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point because it really doesn't make a lot of sense that Loomis wouldn't just go right to the hospital where Laurie is
Hmm.
because he's kind of going around Haddonfield, talking to the police, trying to figure out like, where could he be going? And it
Hmm.
seems quite obvious. um, so I think it just yeah, it's kind of like, okay, like by the time he gets there, it's like, yeah, man, like this is what you should have been doing the whole time. So and
Yeah,
yeah,
it's convenient that it's held off for that long, that
yeah,
but every script ever written is filled with contrivances.
for sure. So what we wind up with, and we can this is another we'll get into this later, I guess, with the other criteria. But the characters that make up the bulk of the screen time are like the hospital employees. So
Mhm.
that's kind of
Yeah,
interesting.
mostly new characters,
Yeah,
for the most part there, and, I do think, like, contrasting this one with Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, I think that in that version, it does work that they've got, like, a couple years in between. I think in the theatrical version, it's supposed to be the next year. In the, director's cut, they make it 2 years later to just sort of show that this is still impacting these people's lives in a very significant manner. So I think that, like, for me, I'd probably give the setup and the story to Rob Zombie's film. That's the way that I'm leaning, just because it dealt with that, like, the after effects and the trauma from multiple different perspectives in a time where that really wasn't like a trendy thing, where it seems like it's become kind of a trendy thing, especially in horror, is like addressing, real life trauma and relating it to,
very
for
true. Yeah,
like the Babadook, like handles that like directly pretty much. And like other movies have dealt with that as well. And so I think it was sort of ahead of its time, doing
yeah.
that 15 years ago back in '09. And I think even, and we'll get to this, like you said, with the performances and stuff, but even some of the character choices, which are certainly part of the story, I really enjoyed as well.
Yeah,
How about
so
you on the '09?
moving into '09, yeah, I like I watched the theatrical version, I'm pretty sure it's on Shudder is where I watched it, so I'm assuming that that was the theatrical because, Michael doesn't say die at the end, and that's a director's
Yeah,
cut thing, right?
yeah,
Okay, so I watched the
that is,
theatrical.
yep.
but yeah, I really liked the way that the trauma is sort of is portrayed now. Like you said, it's gotten a little bit sort of played out where it's like every horror film has to have like realistic depictions of a panic attack, and
Mhm.
the monster was the trauma the whole time. Like this movie kind of got in on the ground floor of that. And real quick, some guys in the chat, Dean Renner and Aaron Click, are making really good points that kind of make me retract my statement. Dean Renner says he feels like Loomis was yeah, see that one? Yeah. This actually makes a lot of sense reading it, and I kind of feel
Mhm.
a little silly because it makes perfect sense, because Loomis was Michael's doctor, and yeah, he would want to go catch Michael for sure. And Laurie's in a hospital where she should be safe. So that actually makes
Yeah.
quite a bit of sense. Thank you for that comment, because that actually hadn't occurred to me. It's easy for us to say this with all the information we have, but when you're, because at the time, um, he doesn't find out that Michael is Laurie's sister, or Laurie is Michael's sister, so he wouldn't have put together the fact that
Yeah.
Michael would be after her, because she, as far as he's concerned, she's just collateral damage or whatever.
Yeah, just insignificant. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Aaron Click follows up. There'd be no reason to think a killer would risk going into what would normally be such a public space as a hospital to kill Laurie. He didn't know Michael
Mhm.
had his sights set on her. So yeah, actually, really good feedback. I'm glad you guys dropped that in there. Yeah, I just wanted to address that real quick.
Yeah, I think those are pretty good points, and I think that maybe they could have, to tell the story a little bit more economically, they could have just had him find out a little bit sooner that Laurie and Michael were related, and then
Right.
that way that would sort of like get him there. But I do understand what, Aaron says here. I think that's what makes it great, is Loomis going to get to her on time. That's an element of the suspense for
Very
sure. And
true. It adds a
Liana
ticking
jumps in.
clock element.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, for sure. And Liana says, H2 gets me because the idea of being drugged and woozy in the hospital when all this is going on is scary as hell.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's definitely an aspect too, where she's struggling to just pull herself into another room to get away from Michael.
Yeah, and like especially having gone through everything she just went through. Like this is all the
Mhm.
same night, so she's got to be like downright delirious.
Yeah. And we got Double Feature Podcast hanging out in the chat. Welcome, welcome. This might be your first time, so everybody make Double Feature feel
Oh,
very
they're
welcome
great.
here.
The doubles are awesome.
Hell yeah. We've got a agreed, Liana. That was so terrifying to be fighting for your life, but not totally in control of your faculties. Yeah, especially in a place where you should feel safe. That's an interesting part about the story here as well, is the Haddonfield Hospital does only have like 6 people working in it, and one of them is a drunk doctor. The
Yeah.
highest ranking member of the staff is wasted. And I think it is pretty creative that they name him Dr. Meekster, and it almost sounds like Mixer because he's drunk.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know if that's a joke that they're trying to make there, but yeah, not many people working here
Yeah, I
at
think
all.
that that's we can talk about that perhaps more in mood and atmosphere / direction.
Cool. Okay.
But that's definitely, yeah, because I don't want to jump ahead, because I'm trying to look at all our criteria and make sure I save specific things for specific
Sure.
parts. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so yeah, I guess we need to decide which one gets the point here. And it's seems pretty close. I don't know. What are you leaning towards right now?
For me, I'm gonna give the point to Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. I think this is one of the things that it has above the first Halloween 2. I do like that, seeing the way that it's affected Laurie. Scout's performance really works for me there. We'll get into that a little bit later. But to me,
Mm-hmm.
that helps sell the story, as something that would be like, I had never seen that in a movie, a slasher movie before, where they're actually dealing with like the real life repercussions of that event, So that's how I'm leaning, is Rob Zombie's Halloween 2.
Um, I'm making up a little note app so I can keep track of these points. I don't know if you had that a plan for that already. So I agree with everything you just said. It's tough because on one hand, I really like um the continuity of 81 and how it feels like that same night, but as we'll get into, I'm not the hugest fan of the brother sister angle, and pretty much without that, you don't have a movie with 81. So like just as a result of that, overall, it's not something that I get as invested in. So I'm gonna probably give the point to 2009 as well.
All right.
I think that's where I'm landing because
All right.
yeah, there's a couple plot contrivances. I mean, Michael literally walks by a kid with a boom box, and that's how he finds out where Laurie is. So it's like, I
Yeah, he
don't know.
like bumps into him or something like that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know if I like that so much, but so we'll give
All right.
H2 RZH2 2 points.
All
Cool.
right, there it is. Let's catch up with anybody else we got here. We got the Oct hanging out saying 24 days until Halloween. Oh, hell yeah. Let's see here. I thought it literally is Dr. Mixter. I think they say like Meekster, but maybe it is spelled like that, Mixter, and the actress just says it like that.
Let me look it up.
It's so funny.
Let's
Super
see.
creepy. It's true that hospitals take on a different mood at night. I saw that firsthand. Okay, yeah, I guess yeah, there is a creepiness and eeriness to the hospitals at night that people are picking up on. And we
Yeah,
do
it's
get a little bit of that,
It's Dr.
you know,
Mixter. Sorry to interrupt you.
Dr. Mixer. Okay, cool. And we do get a little bit of that in RZ's H2. There's the dream sequence that even people that hate the movie might say that they enjoy that part of it, or they might say they hate that movie because of that scene. I've heard that too. I've heard it both ways.
All right. When would be should we talk about that part now? Because I loved that stuff. Like going into H209,
Mhm.
I loved that whole hospital setup. It's very classic Halloween. It's obviously paying homage to the 81 film, which was like super cool of Rob to do. But then to
Yeah.
also put that twist on it of it being like a dream sequence makes perfect sense because Laurie's having all this trauma,
Mhm.
PTSD. I don't mind that it's a dream. I think it's still effective. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the only time a dream sequence feels like the rug being pulled out from under you is when they just go back and it means nothing at all. But clearly it's like
It means
she went
something here,
through
yeah.
yeah, she went through that experience. It's just that in her experience, no, Michael didn't show up. But that's the part that makes it a nightmare for her is the
Mhm.
idea of him showing up and continuing the stalker. And I guess I mean we can sort of move into that a little bit because there is, if we go into the brother sister connection, a big part of that in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is that it's like Laurie and Michael are becoming uh psychically connected stronger
Yeah,
and
dude.
stronger as time goes on, and it's like Laurie's almost like a beacon for Michael. Like as he gets closer, he's like tracking her, and as he gets closer it seems like she's sort of becoming a little bit more like him. And so I think that sort of, makes those nightmares more intense as Michael makes his way there. And yeah, the brother sister connection is handled completely differently in both films. So it'll be interesting to see what everyone says here in the chat, and of course the folks watching after the fact. But yeah, what do you've sort of hinted at it a little bit, but do you want to go through your thoughts on the brother sister connection in both films, Mark?
Sure. Yeah, so like what makes the H1 so great is how Michael is like devoid of motive. Guys like Jason and Freddy have a clear motive.
Hmm.
Freddy's killing the sons and daughters of the people who burned him. Jason is killing people who keep inexplicably winding up on his property, smoking weed and having premarital sex. Like these motives like serve to define them as well. Like it kind of
Hmm.
defines their character. Michael's defining characteristic is that he has no motive. And that's what I love so much about the first movie is that this is just this random act of violence that could happen to anyone.
Yeah. Yep.
With all that being said, um, it feels it's gone on to become a plot point in a lot of Halloween sequels, and it as it goes, it gets drug out and drug out, and by the time we get to like, God, what is it like H2O? it's like, what are we're still doing this like from 09 to, or from 81 to whenever
Yeah.
H2O came out. It's like, I really don't love it as a plot point because it just
Hmm.
feels, I mean, it was literally, we all know the story of, how John Carpenter basically pulled it out of his ass, right? And it's this thing that took on its own life, and
Yeah.
it's endured for so long. There
Hmm.
are people who like it, uh, and that's totally cool. Its utilization in 81 is like, it's strictly just so that there can be a plot.
Hmm.
Laurie is basically a non-factor in that movie, as we'll talk about. She really doesn't do shit in the movie, and the fact she doesn't even ever find out that
Yeah.
there's
On
no like,
screen.
yeah, there's no
On screen.
revelation scene. Yeah, it never
No.
happens.
And which also sort of, going back to H2O just really quick, she seems to have like this really good grip around like everything in H2O. But yeah, we never saw her even get to find that out, which, people are, bringing that up here. I mean, Ashton says Scout's performance when she finds out was phenomenal. Blu-ray says, I like that we got to see Laurie's reaction to finding out in RZ's
Exactly.
H2. Double feature. Scout gave a great performance. Yeah, I mean, those are all these elements from the Rob Zombie version that really just kind of connect the dots a little bit more. And I think that's the one thing that I sort of learn about Halloween 2 the more and more I go back to it, is it seems like there's some kind of big leaps that really, with a couple more pieces of information or just a little bit tighter writing, could probably endure a little bit like even longer than it already has. Because yeah, it just seems like sort of a ooh, what a twist kind of moment with
Yeah, yeah,
the brother sister connection in the original, and then it gives this weird like retcon feel to the original film, like the very first film, because then when you watch it, people are like, oh well, that's his sister, that's why he's following her, and it's like, well, kinda, but
yeah.
like,
I've never
but if you
subscribed to
only,
that. I've
yeah,
never liked that.
if you only watch the original, if you only watch H78 and just stop there, like in the canon of that film, it is completely random. And like you said, Mark, I think that makes it better. I like that zero motive from Michael.
Yeah,
I think that's what makes him like my boy. I love that about him. And so yeah, the brother sister thing didn't really work for me. I mean, when I was a kid, I went along with it, but now like I'm happy that in David Gordon Green's trilogy that they erased that. I think it's one of the better things they did because it just helped them sort of detach from the rest of the sequels as well.
yeah. It freed them up to kind of do their own thing, which was
Hmm.
cool. And it was like, we have so many of sequels where the brother sister thing is a plot point. So I
Yeah.
like that David Gordon Green sort of balanced the scale by giving us 3 more movies where that's not the case. So it kind of
Yeah.
gives everyone something that they can like there.
Yeah. And
Um,
in
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
are you seeing a chat there?
I was about to say something. Somebody said had a really good comment. What was it? Hmm.
Well, I think, real quick while you're looking for that, I'll
Yeah,
just
go
say
ahead.
the Rob Zombies Halloween 2, not only does it is it handled better as a reveal and everything and Laurie actually getting to find out, but I think it also like expands on like in H1 all it does is give Michael a reason to be going after Laurie. Laurie doesn't find out, so it does nothing to affect her character in Halloween 2 from 81. But in RZ's H2, it it expands on the lore of her character. It
Yeah.
explains that there's something else going on. Like I said, Michael's coming for her, but the closer he gets, the more she starts to like break and fall off and have visions that are shared between her and him. So I think that, for me, it works so much better in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 because of that, because it isn't just like announced like bleh, there's this thing. Here's this like
Yeah.
really important twist, and then that's it. There's nothing else. I feel like it's sort of that was the focus of Rob Zombie's sequel, was to shift focus from just the remake to,
Yes.
okay, what's more interesting here, and I'm going to attack the psychological aspect, and it'll still have slasher elements, but it's also going to have something supernatural going on.
Yeah. It's almost like 81 started with that idea, and then they reverse engineered a movie out of that. Whereas
Hmm.
Rob Zombie's movie that was like the whole conceit of the movie, and then they worked forward from there, and that's why I think it works way better. And as
Mhm.
you mentioned, I really love like the psychic connection. I
Mhm.
like that when Michael's like eating a dog, Laurie's eating pizza at the same time, and like it makes her
Yeah.
like throw up because she's a vegetarian in the film.
And she's, like, tasting what he's eating,
Yes, and it's like,
essentially, like,
as
it's
the
yeah.
audience, we get all of that. They don't
Yeah.
like like ham-fistedly explain it
Mhm.
to you, and you're just kind of like, "Oh, that's interesting." And then they never really like explain what it's all about or why it's happening. And I think
Yeah.
that that's all to the movie's benefit. Like, I don't know that you could explain that in a way that would be satisfying. So I think it's better to just kind of drop little trails of like breadcrumbs of like weirdness going on. Like
Mhm.
we can also talk about all the like the visions of Michael, and it's like uh young Michael with his mom and the white horse, which is like for
Yeah.
some reason people really hate that white horse.
Oh, they hate the white horse,
And
dude.
it's I don't get it. Like it's I think if anything they should have leaned more into that kind of cool imagery. We can talk about that in like mood and atmosphere, I think.
For sure, yeah.
Um but like all that stuff was cool, and it was like you actually get a little bit of Michael characterization because it shows
Mhm.
you where he's coming from, and it's like
Yes.
he's like this vagabond, and he's like, I want to go home and be we can be a family again. And it's like that's
Yeah.
why he's going after Lori. And he's got the visions of his mom. I think all that stuff works.
Mhm.
Excuse me. I think it all works really
Yes.
well.
Some people really don't like the white horse. I think it's supposed to be like when Laurie's looking at the Rorschach test and she sees the white horse in the Rorschach. I'm like, that's what the white horse is supposed to be. Like it's whatever is like your compass. It's supposed to mean something different to everybody. But I don't think everyone picks up on that, especially the haters.
Yeah.
Um, T Parker says, I always felt Lori knew Michael being her brother when she had the dream flashback about visiting Michael as a child after her mom tells her she's adopted, maybe repressed memories. But those scenes, T Parker, those were not in the original cut. I think those are from that TV cut
Yeah.
of the first film. I think it's the TV cut of the first film where they insert those scenes. So those aren't original canon, but I totally get what you're saying. I mean, in a way, everyone that loves Halloween knows that it's a very mixed up choose your own adventure kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah. And
But if
it
I can
gets
do an
real muddled.
actually, yeah, actually, and push up my glasses moment. Um, but yeah, maybe there is something in there. But as far as if you watch the original first two films, there's nothing that indicates to us in those original cuts of those films that Laurie has any idea about her relationship to Michael. Yeah, Michael eating dogs has always bothered me, but I always thought it was a metaphor in 78 and Loomis never meant it literally. No, I think he's just like that much not human. I think that's like one of those things that's just supposed to like reiterate to the audience that this is not a regular person. I don't know. What do you think?
um so in the first movie, it is implied that he's eating the dogs, or is he just
Mhm.
killing them? Like that is okay. Because I get one and two kind of mixed up sometimes. Because there's another dog eating scene in H2 as well. I'm pretty sure, isn't there? Or maybe not.
In RZ's H2 there is, and then in the original 78 film, yeah, they see the dog there and Loomis says
Right.
like he got hungry.
There's nothing about
Um
eating dogs in 81 though, is there?
I don't think so.
I don't think
No,
that
he
there is.
sees the Doberman and at the beginning and doesn't do anything to him. He just
Gotcha.
no animals or babies were harmed in the making of this film.
Right. No, I don't. I think it works more in Rob Zombie's movie because
Yeah,
that seems like a thing that Rob Zombie would put in a movie. And it doesn't even have to be Halloween. It just kind of seems like a thing that you would
yeah.
find in like Devil's Rejects or something. Uh, I'm just looking at all these comments.
They are
Um,
flying in. We have 31 people hanging out watching this stream right now.
yeah,
Thank you guys so much to everybody that is watching along. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Don't forget to check out Mark's channel and his
mhm.
socials. There are links in the description as well. I totally forgot to say that at the beginning, but now that the house is packed, it's a good time to let everyone know to check out your channel and go give you a sub.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that.
Of course. So it
Yeah,
sounds like we're pretty unanimous on this one as well. It sounds like
yeah,
RZ's H2 is winning this category
yeah.
also.
I'm going H2 here. So that's
All right.
4-0 for '09.
Yeah. Yeah. It's leaning heavily in 09's favor so far, for
I'm
sure.
sure it'll even out. A lot of people in the
Yeah.
comments are having like expressing distaste at Michael eating dogs in general.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is totally makes sense. I'm just thinking about. So I mean, like I said, it's I think it's on par for a Rob Zombie film.
Mhm.
And as far as like the '78 Michael, yeah, he's sort of he's not really he's not like I don't know that mentally challenged is the right word to use, but
Mhm.
he's just sort of like a primal like operating on like, oh, this is something I can eat, and it's he doesn't like associate things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he lacks empathy, as Double Feature Podcast is saying. So yeah,
Oh yeah, exactly. Lacks humanity. He have no empathy or feelings towards harming. Yeah, I think he is just, Loomis says it. This is not a human. This is
yeah,
not a man.
yeah,
He calls him it in the car in the beginning. So I think that it's just one of those things that's supposed to sell that, that he's not stopping at a convenience store and taking his mask off and going and buying a snack. Like he
yeah.
drives directly to Haddonfield after killing the Phelps garage guy and taking his jumpsuit, and then goes and eats a dog for breakfast before stalking Lori and her friends.
Yeah, I do think that it's something like now that I'm actually thinking about it, I never really thought about this before, but I kind of dislike it because it sort of shows you like what his like routine is like when he's not like stalking and preying on people. Like
Yeah.
it kind of shows you that he is a human and that he does have to eat at certain points. We could assume that he also like uses the bathroom. And these are things that like Dave McRae talks about, where it's like we can never be shown that kind of thing.
Yeah, you don't want
Otherwise,
to see the process.
yeah, it ruins his mystique. So I actually don't
Yeah.
really like the dog eating thing in the original timeline. But we can move on to the next
Yeah.
criteria unless you have anything else you wanted to add.
Yeah, Matt, we'll get to this here shortly when we talk about the portrayal of Michael. So just want to let you know. Yeah, I mean the dog eating stuff, I think it's just I don't even really think about it very much. It's
I don't
not
either.
necessary.
It's
Not
definitely
necessary.
wasn't necessary, but you know, I also don't hate that it's there. I'm actually just thinking about it and talking about it right now way more than I ever have.
Yeah,
So it's probably good to just kind of get it all out.
there it is. There it is. All right, so moving on, the score is 4-0 in favor of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 for everyone following along out there. Moving to our next criteria, we've got characters and performances. We've got a separate one for the portrayal of Michael, so we'll jump into that after this. But this time around, we'll sort of talk about, Lori and her friends. Loomis, of course. Very different interpretations here. Brackett, we get, a totally different side for Brackett as well. What are your thoughts on the characters and performances, Mark?
Uh, um, this might be tough, man, because as we kind of alluded to at the beginning of the show, like the characters in '81 are you got Loomis kind of trying to track down Michael, but also, eventually we know he's going to eventually make his way to the hospital. So it's kind of just like we're playing that game of like, when's he going to get there?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Lori's sidelined, like she's doing nothing essentially.
Yeah.
And then the bulk of the film is spent with, all these new characters who are just being extremely unprofessional at hospital employees. And,
It
you
was a
know,
different time, It's
they're likable enough, but
yeah.
they're nothing to write home about. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and in a slasher film from 1981, performances are not something that I would consider like super high on like the priorities list. Like nobody's winning an
Mhm.
Oscar from this. And to be fair, neither is '09, but it's a different time period and it's a
Yeah.
different tone. And I think that they're able to do a lot more in '09. So like I don't know. I think that the characters and performances are clearly better in '09, in my opinion.
Yeah, man, this one is tough because I love Donald Pleasance as Loomis, and I think that he is awesome in this movie. I want more of him for sure, but I think he still has really, really great moments. Some of the classic lines are in, I mean, he has classic lines in every one of the films that he's in. And this one's no exception. Um, I really like characters like Bud, just kind of cracks me up, he's a funny
Yeah,
character.
perhaps I'm
He's
being
kind of
too
a
unfair.
I think you're being fair enough though, because there a lot of the characters there's not much like meat on the bone. Like Jimmy just sort of is for
Just
some
seems,
reason obsessed with Lori. Never even like he
yeah,
knows who this girl is. He knows the girl goes to high school with his brother. He knows like who her dad is and everything, but just because she's like damsel in distress, he's like all of a sudden he's like, she's kind of hot. I never noticed until she showed up to the hospital,
all her
guys.
friends just died, so maybe now would be a good time to like creepily make my move. It's bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's like Ben Affleck from Mallrats, where he's like, I like to go after girls that have recently broken up because they're vulnerable and
yeah,
open to suggestion.
it's kind of strange. Yeah, someone mentioned Brad Dourif in '09.
Hmm.
He's great in that movie.
Yeah,
Brad Dourif in general is incredible. But
yeah,
you really grow to like him. They have like the dinner scene we mentioned where they're eating pizza.
yeah,
He's like riffing and having fun with Lori and Annie and like talking about some old movie star that they've never heard of, and he's just so likable. And
yeah,
that's actually like one of the Rob Zombie's like best written like character moments, because it's no one's using any profanity. Like it's
yeah,
two teenage girls who are like embarrassed by their old dad or whatever, and it's really endears you to his character and
yeah.
his connection and attachment to Annie, which pays off in the
Hmm.
third act when he discovers that she's dead. And it's like,
Hmm.
Dorif is giving an incredible performance. And
Yeah,
I think it just blows out of the water anything that we get in '81. And like, yeah, you have Loomis. And I know we're not talking about Michael specifically right now, but Michael's good as well. We're gonna discuss that. But overall, I would say Dick Warlock as Michael is good. He's one of the better Michaels in my opinion.
yeah,
But short of that, we got these one-off, one-note kind of characters. Like they're either horny or they're
yeah,
creepy, or they're mostly horny. Like most of them, Jimmy's kind of horny. Bud is horny.
yeah.
Like it's
Jimmy's horny in like a sweet boy kind of
yeah,
way,
yeah, like
but
a
we
dog
know what
with a
it's all
bone or
driven
something.
by.
Yeah.
It's very the other characters in the movie are very much like Friday the 13th characters, other
Yes,
than
that is a good comp.
Laurie and Loomis and the police officers. All the stuff that Loomis is doing feels like Halloween. The shots of Michael walking through the hospital feels like Halloween, but the cannon fodder, the people that Michael can on his death list are all, pretty throwaway Friday the 13th, typical slasher characters for sure. And I mean, I guess, we can sort of dive into Loomis really quick. I know a lot of people don't really like Malcolm McDowell's portrayal there in the second one, but I think it's a good like modern take because we see all these celebrity doctors now, like Dr. Phil and Dr. Oz and all that kind of stuff. And so to me, it sort of makes sense that he would maybe try to use that bit of celebrity.
Mhm.
So while I totally prefer Donald Pleasance's Loomis to
100%.
Malcolm McDowell's, but I do think, again, in the interest of trying something different and modernizing your stories in movies, like I think it is realistically what could happen in that instance. So, but yeah, I mean, you're right. Brackett, Brad Dourif is Brackett when he's talking about Lee Marvin is amazing, super
That's
hilarious
who it
stuff.
was, Lee Marvin, starving
The
like Marvin.
Yeah, and it's just like one of those things where, yeah, it's a scene that doesn't necessarily propel the story, but it's a great for character building, and those scenes are really important. I think, I think they can sort of heighten a movie like a slasher. And
For sure.
yeah, his performance when he's mourning Annie's death is, yeah, I mean, it's Oscar worthy kind of stuff. Like for me, it works. Maybe some other people laugh at it. I don't know, but for me, it really does work a lot.
I was able to buy into it so much more on this rewatch because I was really, I was really paying attention and I really wanted to give the movie a chance. And there were things I didn't love about it, but there was also a lot that did work for me. And it was like, I was like,
Mhm.
this movie's actually not bad at all. It's
Yeah.
actually quite good. Which I was, oh, hey, Nick's here. I was kind of shocked to discover as well. Kind
Yeah,
of
and
how
I
much I
think
really liked it.
yeah, I think it's one of those movies that sort of grows on you. I mean, the first time I watched RZ's H2, I totally loved it. I did not like his remake like at all.
Yeah, I don't like
And
that one.
I really enjoyed this one, and it seems like I've just, grown to appreciate things about it even more. T. Parker says, really digging on Danielle Harris and Brad Dourif's performances, but everyone else was insufferable or forgettable. I really like Laurie's Scout's performance as Laurie here. I think it's one of the better Laurie performances in the whole franchise. But again, it's all a taste thing, right? Like if
Yeah.
that's not what you want from Laurie, I know just with the way the story went with RZ's H2, there's just a big thing about people don't want to see a Laurie that's like frail or mentally weak or having a break, like all those sorts of things. So if that doesn't jive for you, then yeah, it's probably not going to work. But to me, again, going back to the trauma thing with the setup and story, it seems realistic to me. And I think Scouts, like she just really brings it. Those scenes
Yeah,
with Margot Kidder are great. The scenes with Danielle Harris are awesome. Some of Danielle Harris's best work as well. And I
for
even think the
sure.
side characters are really fun here. I like the one guy that owns the record store. I can't Howard Hessman, I think is his name. He was in a show called Head of the Class when I was a kid that I absolutely adore.
Interesting.
um, so yeah, I really dug him in there. I'll just say it right now. I'm going to piss everybody off in the chat, but this one's going to Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 for me.
Dude, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is about to have a 6-0 lead because yeah,
Holy
the
shit.
characters in this are so much better. I mean, God, I was just about to say something. Let's see. Yeah, oh, that so it seems to like that this is winning like in a landslide, but the thing is we're going category by category and we're sort of
Hmm.
addressing all these things like in a vacuum. Um
Hmm.
and that's what kind of could maybe make it seem like it's a little skewed. So it's just important to kind of take that for whatever it's worth because obviously the movies themselves are perhaps more than just the sum of their parts.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just how we're breaking it down in a way that makes sense and is fun to like assign winners because it gets the people going.
It is, yeah, and it's like they're pretty close in certain regards. But yeah, I mean, ultimately you got to pick one, right? So,
Yeah, and I think it's going to level out because I'm looking at some of these other categories, and it might just be the way that it's shaken out because,
yeah.
it is what it is.
And we don't like, just so everyone knows in the chat and the folks that are watching after the fact, like all Nick and I do is pick two movies to pit against each other. We pick the criteria and we don't discuss like how we feel. So going into the stream, it's all part of the thing is sort of
Oh
like
yeah,
talking it out.
this is all
Um,
organic. Like I didn't look at any of these and be like, okay, I'm going to give it to that one and that one, and
yeah.
like none of it was just pre-decided ahead of time. I think that's what makes it more fun is to kind of talk it out organically and come to these conclusions ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and we do have Nick from the Lost River Drive-In the chat. What's happening, Nick? Always great to see you popping in.
I'm
Says,
glad you're here, Nick. I really am
hell
because I
yeah.
know I mentioned you at the start of this. Like you have been the driving force, for a lot of people, like discovering this movie
Yeah.
the love you have for it is so apparent. So yeah,
If
I
if
think if I think of this movie, I think of Nick.
if Nick ran for office, that would be like one of his platforms. He'd be up there at the podium and be like, and I say that everybody in America needs to give Rob Zombie's Halloween to another chance.
It's a good film, perhaps a great film. I don't know. I can't do a Trump impression. All right.
Moving on.
Moving on.
Boom. So the portrayal of Michael Myers. Now, this is when I rank the Halloween movies in my head or on my letterboxd. This is one of, like, if not the biggest, decider of how I end up ranking these movies. Because if Michael doesn't work for you, it's going to be really difficult to have the movie work for you. So, portrayal of Michael Myers. This is a big one. What are your thoughts on the two films versus one another here, Mark?
So, I just want to say I got this is signed by, you can't really see it. It's signed by Dick Warlock right there on the top. I did get to meet the man. I don't have a great excuse me. I don't have like a great story. Typically when I meet these people at conventions, I try to keep it brief. There's usually a ton of people behind you waiting. So if anything,
Yeah.
I like to just kind of ask them, how their weekend's going or whatever, something quick. Dick Warlock is great. He's the man. I've watched a lot of interviews with him. I think he just did one recently with the Slaughtered Lamb podcast where they talk specifically about the firewalk.
Yeah.
And that firewalk is great. But so getting into it, I think I like Dick Warlock's portrayal more. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate the shout out. So my big gripe is, and this kind of speaks to Rob Zombie's first movie as well. Tyler Mane is very intimidating. He's very physically imposing. He is just this beast of a man. But that's not what makes Michael Myers scary. What makes Michael Myers scary is that he's just a normal dude. It's too much. It felt like he was overcompensating a bit. So like, and it's a Rob Zombie thing to do, so I don't fault him for it, but it's not, to me, it's like, okay, yeah, of course this guy is scary. He's like 7 foot tall and could rip me in half like a toothpick. So Dick Warlock's portrayal is not the same as Nick Castle's. It's a little bit more robotic. Nick Castle was a little more subtle and felt a little more just kind of effortless, where it feels like Dick Warlock is perhaps doing a bit of a Nick Castle impression. It's still good, but it's not as good as Nick Castle. But we're not talking about him. If we were, he would win handily. But
we're not talking about you, Nick, for once. Let it go, bud.
No. So yeah, basically, I don't love that. Like Tyler Mane is great. I'm sure he's a cool guy. I never met him or anything, but it's just too on the nose. Like he's just this mammoth man. And I like Dick Warlock's portrayal more, is kind of what I'm getting at. Where do you fall?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much right there with you. I've been popping up some of the chat as Mark discussed his thoughts. Nick says Robo Myers versus Hobo Myers. Give me Hobo, and he says that he could probably take Robo Myers. Maybe, but I do think there is something supernatural going on with that original interpretation of Michael. I just don't think it's explained to us what it is exactly. So I'm right there with you, Mark. I like when Michael Myers is just a normal sized guy. I think that is way scarier to me than a man that's 6'8".
Yes.
And I do think, I will say this, Hobo Myers works way better for me than their version of Myers in the remake, because he's literally like breaking through like the solid oak doors of these homes. And at that point, it's sort of like Fast Zombies, where I'm like, why even try to like get away from this guy? Like this guy it's like, he's not scary. Like to me, I don't think it's as scary, because I think the reason why Michael gets under my skin and why he's my favorite slasher villain of all time is because of that like creep factor, watching, waiting, picking his spot, not like trying to figure out what's going on in that brain of his, but knowing that you'll never really understand. Like that's what works better for me with Michael. And granted, in RZ's H2, they definitely dive into Michael's psyche in a totally different way. They do reveal a little bit more, but also there's a lot of questions. So I really, really enjoy that aspect of it. But I think that I've got to go with Dick Warlock's portrayal here as well, because it reminds me more of the original film, and that's my favorite film in the franchise. So I know that's a bit long-winded, but that's how I am. I just meh.
Dude, I'm the same way, and I catch myself doing it, and I'm like, all right, man.
This
Like,
is where we come, though, to just keep on talking, right?
yeah.
So
Hopefully,
yeah, I
everyone's
will.
okay with it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think, you know, a lot of folks we do have some Tyler Mane and Hobo Myers love out there in the chat, but I think a lot of people are going for Dick Warlock's portrayal as well. And yeah, maybe there's a little bit of nostalgia bias because he's my very first Michael Myers.
Yeah.
But I do, when I think about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 and why I love it so much, I think about everything else first, kind of. And
Yeah. The Michael
Mike,
of it all is sort of almost an afterthought in
yeah,
some
and
ways.
Michael's portrayal doesn't come to the surface. And also with that, you know, as a, you know, a nice thing to say about that film, it doesn't work as a detriment that Michael is not the main focus every moment.
Yeah, it's actually surprising that it's as good as it is, and Michael is sort of just like he is sort of the driving force of the movie, but it's definitely more about
Mhm.
Laurie. And then
Yeah,
something else I wanted to add is like I like in Hobo Myers to praise Hobo Myers. I like the fact that he only puts the mask on when he's killing.
yeah.
It's a unique way of it sort of makes the mask mean something
Mhm.
as opposed to him just kind of having it on all the time. It's different, and I really like that. And
Yeah.
just that sort of imagery of him putting the mask on, it's like, oh shit, like, you know, some shit's about to go down.
Yeah, there's the shot in the field with, like, the big light behind him,
Oh,
and he's
that
about to
shot is
take on
so
those
dope,
assholes.
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Uh, and you
Well,
hear, like, the breathing come through the mask, like, everything else cuts out. It's sort
yeah,
of like a superhero moment. It's like Superman putting on his suit, or, you know, Bruce Banner hulking out. It's like his way of saying, "Now shit's gonna get real. Like,
yeah.
I was being peaceful, and now I've gotta, you know, kill a motherfucker."
Yeah, and I think I would like it more if it wasn't going on Tyler Mane's hulking 7 foot tall, you know, body or whatever. Because I think it would be
Mhm.
even more effective if it was just a normal sized dude, and then he puts a mask on and just goes like sicko mode.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I
D
do think, like, I'm never hated on Hobo Myers, but yeah, I gotta give it to Dick on this one.
Yeah, gotta give it to Dick. Yeah, I like what people are saying though about Michael's supernatural in H2 because
Mhm,
you know, it's similar to the last act of the first movie. It everything that happens up until then is like very believable, and then he gets shot 6 times, and then it's like,
mhm.
oh shit, like, and then it leaves you on that question of like, how did he walk away from that?
Yeah,
H2 sort of starts, and you know, you're like, okay, I guess he didn't get hit any vital organs or whatever, but then he gets shot in the face 2 times at the end of H2, and it's
yeah,
not in the eyes because there is a shot where you can see his eyes, so it's implied
mhm.
that somehow he got shot in the head somewhere and blood is leaking down.
Yeah,
But it comes so late in the movie that it almost doesn't matter at that point. You know, if that had
mhm.
happened early on, you'd be like, "How's he still walking around?"
Yeah, and
Uh,
at that point in the original H2, they're sort of treating him like, you know, a monster in a monster movie. You know,
yeah,
just impervious until the very last thing. It's like the old Frankenstein movies that all end with a fire, you know, that kind of
yeah.
thing.
It's sort of one of
Um,
those things that if you think about it too much, you know, it's definitely not going to make sense. But it's just like
yeah,
movie logic. Like you kind of just have to
sure.
go with it.
Well, and
Um,
especially with slasher films, we just shouldn't be surprised. Like, it's kind of par for the course that your villain is going to have supernatural strength and durability. It's just one of those things. Like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
especially when you're talking sequels, you know, maybe not in maybe movies that sort of petered out and didn't have a franchise or something like that. But it seems like in the sequels, it's all about bringing the killer back, and they seem to be definitively dead at the end of the first one, you
hmm
know. So,
yeah.
yeah, that part's never bothered me, and it also, like, I do like that supernatural element, as long as they, you know, when they're not trying to explain it, I really like it. So yeah, that one's gonna go to the original H2. So we've got a 6-2 score. Holy cow. Don't call it a comeback, folks. Let's see what the
Nice.
next category brings. We are taking it to mood and atmosphere and direction. So yeah, we're basically talking cinematography, that kind of that feel, like which one gives you the better, Halloween movie vibes, all that kind of stuff. So what do you got for us, Mark, on this one? What do you think about the mood, atmosphere, and direction here?
My gut instinct is saying that RZH2 might have this one too. But let's talk through it. So
Mhm.
the as people have mentioned, H2 81 takes place in the hospital, and it's very effective because, as anyone who's been in a hospital knows, at night especially, I've spent the night in the hospital overnight. It's not fun, and it's very like
Mhm.
places where there's normally a lot of people. Schools are this way as well, where suddenly there's now nobody, and it's a long dark corridors, and
Sure.
especially all that security cam footage of Michael just kind of walking down the hallway,
Yeah.
um, is really really effective. um so like that is like the sort of like the like that's this movie's like claim to fame as far as these things is the hospital setting. It's kind of unique as far as slashers go. I can't think of any
Mhm.
off the top of my head. I'm sure there are plenty, but I can't think of any other slashers that are set in like a hospital at night.
Yeah.
Um, but then you've also got H209, which is a pretty decent, like it's a damn well shot movie. I love all those like surreal Alice in Wonderland, like black and white sort of like
Mhm.
dream sequence scenes. They're
Little
so
Tim Burton.
Yeah, they're like so bizarre and
Yeah.
like surprisingly like very stylistic, like more so than you might expect from Rob Zombie. Not to,
Mhm.
you come to expect a certain thing from Rob Zombie. So when
I
he
think
throws
that's fair.
something like that at you, it's kind of like a welcome thing. There's a particular image in '09 of this like big skeleton, and it's got the Michael Myers mask on it.
Yeah.
And that imagery is so striking, and it's like really cool, and it's surprising because I don't think we ever get that image in another Halloween movie. Um, I really love that image. If you guys know what I'm talking about, it's really striking. It's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, that no other Halloween movie takes those kinds of chances, with, getting kinda surreal and dreamy, kind of a little bit trippy, like I said, Tim Burton. I think I watched the director's cut with his commentary, and I think those scenes were done, like, one of the last days of shooting, and they kinda threw that thing together, which is wild to think that those look as good as they do when they were done, like, pretty hurriedly. But I think one of the things is, like, and this is something you don't always say about, Rob Zombie's work, but tastefully bizarre, not
Yeah,
just
yeah,
not just shockingly bizarre.
100%, dude. I definitely agree with that.
And I think, when it comes to like the original, what are your thoughts on that one for H2 from 81?
As far as like the direction, or I'm sorry, what did you mean by that?
Yeah, like how about with the cinematography, like I think, it looks a little bit more, of course, like the original film. I think that had been brought up here a
Okay,
little bit
yeah,
earlier. Um I do think, with the original has a little bit more of like a Halloween kind of feel, like the fall kind of vibes.
definitely.
Um, but I do like hear what let's see, where was it? It was I totally lost it. Where did it go? Oh yeah, Blu-ray Addict said I like that RZ decided to film his sequel on 16 millimeter film instead of 35 millimeter, like the remake. Yeah, the RZH2 has a bit of a grit to it for sure. I don't know. This one's tough for me.
This one's very tough because and something that kind of applies to all these criteria is that these movies are obviously made at very different points in time, and so like at the time a lot of things like they were just trying to make a sequel to Halloween. They weren't taking into account perhaps you know, things like these slasher movies. We horror fans have kind of put them up on a pedestal, and I don't want to
Mhm.
take anything away from like Dean Cundy or any of these other people, but they did not expect these movies to be dissected and discussed to this extent back then. So
Yeah.
I think it might be safe to say that perhaps they were not as focused on like getting the absolute best shots, especially for the sequel. I think it's different from the first one, perhaps, especially with Rick Rosenthal direct. And I don't know, I don't want to take anything away from Rick Rosenthal, like I said earlier, but I think it is one thing we can say for certain is that he is not as good of a director as John Carpenter. That's not
Yeah.
meant to be taken, sort of offensively. It's just kind of an objective fact. So with that being said, I don't know that Halloween 2 quite reaches those same heights, mood and like direction wise
Mhm.
as the original. And then '09 is like a totally different beast. It's a product of its time. '81 is a product of its time.
Yeah.
So it's quite difficult to say. I think perhaps, especially with this criteria. All that being said, just because of how totally different these two movies actually are at the end of the day.
Mhm.
Um,
I
what are you thinking?
I think that so I'm gonna go with 81 on this one because seeing as how I enjoy the original Halloween 78 so much more than the remake, I do think that 81 does such a great job of following that movie up with a very similar look and feel. I really like, especially all the point of view shots at the beginning of the film, when
Mhm.
Michael goes to the Elrod house and then when he attacks the other, young woman there. I love
Yeah,
especially that shot that goes through um, the Elrod's house that's like the dad is in the chair and then
in
the
the
mo or,
in the foreground,
yeah,
and then
and
the
then
wife
Michael's
is in
all the way
the.
back there.
It's real.
Yeah,
Someone posted that on
like
social media, like right before the stream. That exact shot where it's the dad in the foreground, like really close,
yeah,
the wife behind him in the kitchen, and then Michael way behind her. Um,
yeah, and that
that's
Michael
a
d
really great
like
shot.
yeah, and he decides not to do anything to them. I think that's like a really interesting sort of direction as well. That I like that when Michael just randomly won't attack, or you know what I mean? He sort of
Yeah,
has his standards or something, and that's the mystery that I really like
it's
about his
it's this
character.
it's this unspoken set of rules that only he is privy to, and we just kind
Yeah,
of have to speculate as to why he does what he does, and that's what is great about it. So
yeah, and then similarly, Bud's kill that's like silent and in the background when Nurse Karen is in the hot tub. I really think that's effective. I
mhm.
love, is it Nurse Janet that goes in to check on Dr. Mixter and,
She's
she
the
backs
blonde,
into Michael.
short-haired woman, right?
No, I can't remember what her name is. I think Nurse Janet's the one that gets the needle, the air
Oh, right,
pocket
okay.
put in her blood or whatever. But the way, like, I think it was Liana that had mentioned it in the chat earlier, like, just that shot alone when she backs into Michael and he comes into the light, the mask looks exactly like it does in the original film somehow. Because for the rest of the movie, it just fits Dick Warlock differently. But that one shot, there's something really special about the mask there and the lighting and everything. So I'm going to give it to 81, but I do think all the points that you made about Rob Zombie's '09, like I love the cold, like fall feel. I really do love those like dreamy, surreal sequences and everything like that. The little style flashes of like style that he puts in there that are just a little bit different than, what he had done before that. But yeah, this one, it's got to be 81 for me. What about you?
Yeah, this is definitely the closest one so far. I really think these are like neck and neck. They both do different things very well.
Hmm.
Um yeah, all those things that you just said. I think that what I'm perhaps not giving '81 enough credit for is the fact that it has the Dean Cundy of it all really like
Mm-hmm.
working in its favor.
Yeah.
Um so, and perhaps I'm talking out of my ass and I should give Rick Rosenthal more credit. But I think that yeah, I think Dean Cundy really plays a large part in what makes '81
Yeah.
as effective as it is, which
Mhm.
and it is effective. Don't get me like I said, it's my favorite. It's my second favorite, Halloween movie.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think I need to go '81 as well. partially because I want to make this even, and this is honestly a coin flip anyway. So yeah, let's go 2 points for 81.
All right.
That's good for me.
Hell yeah. We are at 6-4, guys, in favor of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. It is climbing up, getting a little more even. But you know what's not getting even, Mark? Our poll right now is at 61 votes. That's amazing that many people have come in and voted. Thank you guys so much for doing that. And we are at 90% 1981 as the better Halloween 2 out of 61 votes. It's
I was expecting like a 60-40 split, maybe. I don't
sure.
know. That's
Yeah.
pretty shocking to me.
I'd
But
settle for a
actually,
70-30.
honestly, it's also not that shocking though, because
Mm,
Rob Zombie himself is a guy who gets a lot of unnecessary hate.
sure.
It's very unnecessary. I was part of that camp not as recently as like a couple years ago. Like I didn't, I didn't really like him that much. And it's
Mm,
all the same sort of lazy, like cheap shots that get thrown his way. You know, bad dialogue, all the
sure.
hillbilly characters. His wife can't act. He puts her at every movie. Um,
Yeah.
but Rob Zombie is perhaps not a guy who makes movies for me, but I can definitely
Yeah.
see the appeal. And I appreciate that we have voices like that making
Hmm.
movies. And I hope the guy gets
Yeah.
to continue making movies because, he seems like a really cool dude. I've watched plenty of interviews with him. I watched him on Rogan, which was a really interesting interview.
Hmm.
And I think it's just totally overblown hatred, but like, and so part
Yeah.
of that has like seeps its way into his Rob Zombie movies or his Halloween movies, and
Yeah.
people kind of write them off the same way they write him off, and it's easy to do that. So I get it. I was part of that camp, so I'm not totally shocked at that split, but it is somewhat disappointing. I wish people were more open minded. Like I said, I don't love most of the guy's movies, but
Hmm.
he's a guy. He's just doing what like if you're given the opportunity to make movies, you're going to make movies.
Yeah.
Like that's what happened with him. So sorry, that
Well, and
was
I think
a long winded aside.
like as the years go on and people just give, especially his sequel another shot, because I think there's more love, I would say, for his remake than there is for the sequel, at least at this point. But I
Hmm.
think as people like as the years go on and people give it another chance, maybe they watch a video like this or something. I mean, that's basically the reason why Nick and Lee and I wanted to hop on and do that earlier this year, was to just sort of like share that positive perspective. And because one thing that I like to do is I like to talk to people about their experiences, what they thought of a film. And then the next time I go back to that film and I revisit it, I can sort of see it from their perspective. Maybe there was something that I missed because I was paying attention to something else. Film is just the extension of literature. So the way that people dissect books that were written hundreds of years ago, like we should be, we're the people that dissect movies, I guess. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up because I think that's absolutely right. I mean, for me, really, just one last thing on Rob Zombie's like style and how it affects his sequel. I don't think it seeps in very much, except for when Richard Brake says "fuck" like 30 times in a row. Okay, I don't need that,
It's
but I
probably a
think
little
pretty much
excessive, yeah.
but that's within the first like 10 minutes of the movie, 5 minutes of the movie. Once that's like out of the way, I think everything else dialogue wise is so much better than his other works. So I suppose we can move on to our next category there. Boom, music and sound design. This one I think is going to be interesting, Mark, because the score for the original Halloween one is so classic and fun, kind of that disco-y version of the original theme. Plus, everyone loves Mr. Sandman. But
Yeah.
man, the soundtrack element, like the actual like songs that Rob chose to put in his sequel from '09, that's sort of more of the focus instead of so much on the score right there. So what are your thoughts on the music and the sound design here in each one of these movies?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. So, if I'm remembering correctly, uh, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, you really don't get much of that original John Carpenter score like at all, right? Like it's kind of like I remember you get it right at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe a couple moments throughout, but possibly also not at all. This is one that I would kind of need to kind of have the stats laid out in front of me.
Yeah. I don't think, yeah, I think you're right. I think the theme is played like as the credits start in the
Yeah,
'09 version. I don't think he uses the theme any other time. Maybe I'm like, there's got to be at least one point in the movie where they use that theme, but I can't really put my finger on it here.
yeah. Hopefully, someone in the chat can tell us. It stood out to me with '09 because I'm pretty sure it
Hmm.
plays like right at the end, and I was like, oh, like there's that music, but I also wasn't like missing it either. Like I wasn't spending the whole time like where's the John Carpenter score? Like that thought
Hmm.
never occurred to me. So
Yeah.
when it did play right at the end, I was like, oh, that's cool. Um,
Hmm.
so this is one that I'd actually like. I would like to. I meant to do this. I wanted to watch like a cut comparison video or something like that, where it kind of tells you all the differences between the theatrical and the director's cut, because I don't know if that affects it either. Like I can't remember
Hmm.
if the director's cut he included more of the original score. I can't quite recall.
Yeah, and it's like now that I'm thinking about it, some people, so Vanderhoff is saying it doesn't play at all.
Uh,
Um,
T. Parker Evans says the main theme only plays in the end credits of. Okay, yeah, so that's what I
okay.
remember. It definitely does play at the end of RZH2. What I couldn't remember was if there was any other sprinklings of it, perhaps like Laurie's theme or something. The dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, I don't think they use any of those other themes.
No, I don't think that they do, which I think is to the movie's benefit
Mhm.
because you don't have that sort of association with '09. It's
Yeah.
entirely its own thing, music and
Mhm.
all.
Mhm.
So I respect that about '09. Excuse me, but I think that the updated, sort of more synthy uh, version of Carpenter's score is more iconic. I think
Mhm.
Mr. Sandman is very effective as sort of the unofficial theme song of '81.
Yeah.
Um, as this sort of like it's like a cool thing that they do where they take this more upbeat, older sounding song, like songs from the '50s and '60s that
Yeah.
are so old, and they have that very classic feel to them, and then you apply them to this very sinister context, and then the song sort of takes on a scarier. I think that song like used to scare me when I was a kid because of
Mr. Sandman?
yeah, like because of '81. So
That's awesome.
yeah, and I like as I'm saying this, I think I'm kind of like remembering. I'm like unlocking memories. Yeah, I think I might, because I don't remember much of the music in '09. Like it's kind of just like wallpaper to me.
Mhm.
Okay, that's
Yep.
interesting. They use a rendition of the shape stalks in '09 during the hospital dream sequence. Oh, so that didn't stand out to me though too much. And that's good though, because it's not jumping to the forefront, and it's not distracting, which
Yeah.
is a positive for '09. But for this specific category, I don't think it's enough to like give it the point or anything.
Mhm. Yeah, it's I think the one thing that stands out to me about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is more of the pop songs that he uses throughout. Um, he's got, say what you want about his music style. I mean, I don't, completely hate it or anything. It's pretty much like dance music with a metal tinge, I would call it, like at least his solo
Sure, yeah.
stuff. But I think he has an amazing taste for music. Like I could kick it with Rob and put on a mixtape, or swap, records and all that kind of stuff because he's got, I think Liana had mentioned it before in the chat, the Nights in White Satin by the Moody
I was
Blues that
just
plays
about to
throughout the
say.
dream sequence, which is great. There's that really fun old pop song called The Things We Do for Love by
Hmm.
10cc. That I think that's playing after the car accident, after the cow,
Yeah,
all
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Then there's, Kick Out the Jams by MC5. The Chase is Better Than the Catch by Motorhead. There is, let's see here, I Just Want to Make Love to You by Foghat. There's all this really fun stuff. There's even, I'm looking at the list right now, but I know there's a couple, punk rock tracks in there as well. So I do think that Rob Zombie did a great job with, picking the soundtrack music here, but I've got to go with the original Halloween 2 from 81 on this one, because I think what Alan Howarth did to enhance that original Carpenter score is very fitting. It kind of takes it to the next level. It would have been so stale if they just reused the exact same track. So I like that he was able to put his synth on top of it. There's that really cool, the really cool use of the synth keyboard that's got that like wow, 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 wow. Like it's just got that shake to it. That's just, I don't know.
It gives it like some more body to it, kind of.
Yeah. It's like a fresh coat of paint on something that was already so beautiful. So I've got to go with the music and I guess sound design. Maybe there's probably technically better sound design in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, but I do really like the Carpenter stings that they use in this film as well. So I'm going to give the whole enchilada to Halloween 80 or Halloween 2 from 81.
Yeah, 09, the dream sequence is really cool, especially like it's made even cooler because of that usage of Nights in White Satin. They're in the hospital room. It's like pouring rain outside, and then you've got like that music. It's very effective. But that's the only like standout song for me. Like I actually have the soundtrack pulled up on IMDb right now, and I don't know a ton of these songs. It seems very much curated by Rob Zombie. Like this is the type of shit that he would love. So like that's cool. But I'm gonna go 81 as well here. It's the classic.
Holy shit!
It's the classic score. You cannot beat it.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah. And I think, Alan Howarth and John Carpenter did a really good job. People are talking about Halloween 3 in the chat. We're not talking about that movie today, but absolutely the soundtrack is amazing. And another movie that looks really good because Dean Cundey is all over it. So holy crap, Mark, we've got a tie game right now. 6
we really do.
6. Holy shit. Is it going to come down to the poll? Because I guess we already know the winner if that happens. 91% to 9%. You guys are brutal. But thank you so much for voting. All right. Moving on. We've just got 2 categories left. So the visual effects and the kills. I guess we're just really talking gore effects. / suspense of the kills and, which movies kills work better for us. So what are your thoughts here, pitting 81 against 09, Mark?
VFX and kills. Yeah, so Halloween 281, as most know, is like way more of a real like slasher film than 78. Obviously 78's a slasher, but they up the kills in this one. They up some of the gore. It's definitely more bloody than 78. But like the kills, so the kills in 09 are super gruesome. They're appropriate for what that movie is and who Michael is. But this is one we're going to kind of have to dissect a little bit. Because it's sort of tied into the Tyler Mane of it all, which is like Tyler Mane's Michael Myers is the type to repeatedly slam a stripper's head into the wall and stomp what's his name? Jeff Daniel Phillips? Is that his name?
Oh my God. That's one of my favorite moments in the entire franchise when the bouncer character looks at Michael and says, "Don't give me no reason." That's just like one of my favorite moments in all of Halloweendom. I love it so much. Some of the effects get to like, what we would end up seeing in like Terrifier, years down the road.
Yeah.
Especially, I would say, like, upon revisiting this after seeing Terrifier, I'm like, oh my gosh, these effects, when you see the, the bouncer hanging in the hallway and
His
his face is
face is just
crushed in, it's very similar to some of those, Damien Leone effects that you end up seeing, and way before that kind of brutality. But even like the strip club owner with his broken arm, like, a compound fracture is a very difficult thing to see in a movie, and they
mhm.
show you so much.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, this one it's so different, right? Because it's kind of like, which one do you prefer? Because I do think
Yeah.
that they're both really great at what they're doing. And, like you had said, like, that they're appropriate for the time that these films were made.
Yeah.
Um,
They're very much of each other's tone and what the movie is. A lot of people are
mhm,
pointing out how iconic a lot of 81's kills are. The hot
yeah,
tub scene is
yeah.
super cool. The effects on that nurse's face, of her skin kind of progressively
Oh yeah,
getting
yeah.
more and more like peeled off, is like very effective. The scalpel in the back lift up is very good. It's
Mhm,
see, like, that is something that is kind of brutal, and it demonstrates that Myers is, like, perhaps supernatural, because a normal man couldn't do that with just a scalpel, but he
mhm,
does it. So it demonstrates, like, a lot of strength, but
mhm.
it's not as overt as, like, a head stomp. So
Yeah.
they're kind of similar, but the execution is different, which is very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, and I think, everyone's making really good points here about the, T. Parker says, RZH2 is more brutal than H2, but but H2 is more creative and has taste to it. And I think that's one of those things, like, honestly, I think, like, the most tasteful kill in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is Annie's, because you don't see it. I mean, the
Yeah,
aftermath is really brutal, but I do like that they made that choice to not show that. Like, to
for
if
that
we're gonna lose
specific
one of our
character, yeah, it
yeah,
was
if we're
very
gonna
well done.
yeah, if we're gonna lose one of our beloved characters in the story, like, let us deal with the heartbreak, but don't make us watch the whole thing happen, So I thought
Yeah,
that's where he's showing, and for the people like you had mentioned that have got that Rob Zombie hate, it's I think he is showing some restraint and some tastefulness there in that.
for sure.
But I
As
do
oh, go ahead, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was just saying, like, as we're discussing it, it seems like a very obviously a very conscious decision to not show Annie's death.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that he did that, because he could have
Mhm.
easily shown her getting killed, but it shows, like, some reverence to not only that character, but to Danielle Harris as an actress, and, like, how much of a legacy
Mhm.
character she is. Not so just to have her there to begin with is already very cool, because he's giving her the opportunity to be a part of this franchise probably long
Yeah.
after she thought she ever would be again. And
Yeah.
I really appreciate that, because, like we said, she's very good in the movie.
Mhm.
So I really like how her whole character was handled, especially her kill.
Mhm. Yeah, using the footage, like, when Brad Dourif finds her, like, using the actual home video footage of Danielle as a kid. All
Yeah.
that's yeah,
Yeah,
very
it's very emotional stuff, man. Like, more so than you might expect
mhm.
from Rob. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Have a good night, Eli. Thanks for hanging out with us, bud.
See you, Eli. Have a good night, brother.
Yeah, let's see here. So, man, this one is so tough. I think
It's
the
very tough.
technical accomplishment is so good in '09. The off-screen kill is great. I think that this is a category where I'm going to lean more towards the first Halloween 2 from 1981, because
Yeah,
of, it was my very first impression of Michael, so it was like those things worked for me in such a way as a kid. And I do like, I love when you have all sorts of kills in a slasher movie. Like, some of them you see, some of them are off screen, some are more gory, some are just like brute strength or whatever. And I think Halloween 2's got like a really nice mix. And of course, everything that you had mentioned when you were talking, and what you guys are bringing up here in the chat, absolutely. I mean, they are also memorable and iconic for sure. So I think that's where my points got to go with 1981 on this one.
Yeah, I'm with you. When these categories are as close as they are, I kind of have to defer to the one that I've been the fan of the longest and has sort of that benefit of time. Obviously, both these
Yeah.
movies have been around a while at this point.
Mm-hmm.
81 obviously more so,
Mm-hmm.
and you and I have both had a a lot like I don't remember a time in my life where I didn't know what Halloween 2 was. Like that's how long
Yeah.
this movie has initially terrified me and then gone on to entertain me like as an adult.
Yeah.
So just generally speaking, the movie will always get points for that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I have to go 81 here because just sort of that long time association. And this is razor thin, guys. Like these two categories
Yeah.
are so close. They both have such great kills, VFX wise, especially. Like you mentioned, the compound fracture looks great, looks real.
Yeah.
Jeff Daniel is it Jeff Daniel Phillips? Am I saying?
Yeah.
Okay, I just it's like three names, and I don't want to I don't want to mess up his name. But his face when it's all mashed up, like really good stuff, man.
Oh yeah. It's pretty gruesome for sure. And even the, we had talked about it, everyone was freaking out about the dog thing. That all works as well. um and even the hospital scene at the beginning when they're just showing all the aftermath and everything with
Oh
Lori.
yeah,
Like
like
all of
taking her
that, like that's
fingernails off and fixing up her
yeah,
hand.
just
Her hand's all messed up.
yeah, like all that stuff, and then she falls into that like dumpster full of bodies and stuff like that. Just all sorts of like,
Mhm.
grotesque things that they pull off really well. But yeah, I guess like me being kind of an old school guy, or at least just appreciating a bit more of that older vibe. Yeah, Halloween one for me. So wow, we've totally flipped now. Halloween 2. God, I keep on saying Halloween.
It's
H2
it's
from 81.
it's a struggle, man.
H2 from 81 is now leading 8-6. Guys, if this were a football game, this would be like a shutout in the first half and then a total comeback. This has been really fun so far. So we are heading into the final category here. This one is each film's climax. And I think for me, this might be the easiest category to
Yeah.
parse out,
Yeah, I think so.
unfortunately. And it's one of those things like, not to, well, I'll just completely tip my hand here, for how much I do enjoy Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 from '09. I do think the end is sort of like, what? Both versions, I don't think either version is that great. I just think there could have been a bit more to the ending. It could have either been more grand or just maybe stuck with it for a little bit longer, because it seems relatively abrupt. And I think that the ending in the Halloween 2 from '81, man, it's just that firewalk is incredible, and those moments with Michael and Loomis and Laurie all facing off, the tension is awesome for all of that. So you know I know I gave you the first go round on every other category, but I figured I'd just
Yeah,
get it out of the
no.
way. I'm gonna go with 81 on this one. It's
Yeah.
just, I mean, talk about iconic. It is literally on the cover of the Steelbook. It is one of the things people talk about the most about this movie is this one little scene. So yeah, there's my choice to close this out.
Yeah, as much as I liked '09 on my latest rewatch, the finale might be the worst part. Um, it's
Mhm.
sort of the movie starts out super hot with that hospital sequence, and then
Yeah.
the stuff in the shack is interesting because it's like Lori is like unable to move because the ghostly Michael Myers when he's a boy is like holding her, but like only she can see that. So Loomis
Mhm.
is like get up, we gotta
Yeah.
go, and she's like I can't. So it's like that. presents like really interesting like ideas where as far as like
Mhm.
how much of this is like is there actually a ghostly presence there holding her, or is
Yeah.
it part of her psychosis? I like that it's never explicitly stated.
Mhm.
We can assume that it's probably just her psychosis or whatever, but
Yeah.
it could also be a supernatural thing, and it's not really said explicitly, which is cool. I always love anytime you can do ambiguity. You're going to be better off for it because people will discuss your movie for years and years and years after.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just kind of tell them this is exactly what happened, you've removed any need for anyone to ever talk about it again because you've told
Yeah.
us.
And a smarter audience is gonna want to do some of the thinking for themselves and not have everything spoon-fed to them. Like, there's certain things that you certainly need to make sure that everyone understands, but, yeah, there are elements of every story that I think should be left, up to interpretation, for sure.
Yeah. But so with all that being said, though, yeah, it's Firewalk. It's Dick Warlock
Mhm.
on fire. It's, I mean, what do I? There's nothing I can add to that really.
It's yeah.
It's
I mean,
incredible. Yeah.
the whole thing is great. Like, the whole, turning on the gas to distract him because he can't really see, and
Hmm.
then the gas leading to, Loomis being able to blow up the joint. The fact that he, when I think he shares a cigarette with one of the police officers earlier on, he happens to, like, take the guy's lighter. So that's
Oh,
one
I
of those
never
things.
noticed that, dude.
Yeah, I don't think he has the lighter to begin with. He
Wow.
ends up putting it in his pocket, so then it ends up coming back to the end of the movie and everything.
Chekhov's lighter. Holy shit!
Yep,
I'm like a fake
exactly.
Hollow. I'm a fake Halloween fan, dude.
You
I
don't
never
even love
picked up on
Halloween
that.
2.
Well, to be fair, the last time I watched this was the TV cut, and that may or may
Mm.
not be in that.
Yeah,
And
it's a blink and you miss it kinda moment. Like, they so yeah, one of those things that I think is, pretty. I like how it all ties
yeah,
up at the end, and it gives Laurie a little something to do there. I know she's running away from Michael for, like, the last third of the movie,
hmm,
but yeah, right from Michael, like, walking through the glass door, getting shot, killing the cop, all of that, like, that climax is just so awesome, and, the bloody tears mask is such a cool look,
really
for that version of
iconic
Michael.
image from
The
that movie. Yeah,
Yeah, swiping the scalpel and the cool little, like, it just makes this, like, very
you do
pronounced
that
effect.
effect really good, dude. That was good, man. Um,
So
yeah,
yeah, it is just, like, I think somebody had said here in the chat, like, they don't even remember what happened at the end of, Halloween 2
it's
from
she
'09.
after everything happens, like Lori like expresses some sympathy for Michael, and then she like stabs him in the heart, and then she comes out
Mhm.
of the shack like wearing the mask.
Yeah.
And then it kind of like cuts to her like in the asylum. That's my good buddy Tyler. Him and I do a show. I think you popped in one night.
Yeah.
Him and I do
What's
a
happening,
show.
Tyler?
It's pretty infrequent, but we're both so busy. Him more so. He lives in New York and does a lot of like video production stuff. So
Oh, sweet.
his schedule's very busy. But whenever we're able to, we should have another stream coming up in October, uh,
Hell yeah.
where we will be talking about like various horror films and stuff. So that'll be a lot of fun. But
Heck yeah.
just wanted to plug that real quick. But
Absolutely.
um, what I also like is that Loomis sacrifices himself in the continuity of that movie. Obviously, he
Mhm.
shows up again, but in the context of that movie, that's him sacrificing himself to simultaneously kill Michael and save Laurie. So, like,
Yep.
perfect send off for Loomis. Could have ended it there. Um, and it's really
Mhm.
effective when you take that into consideration. The fact that he, chooses to go out like that, where it's like him and Michael are both going to go out together. If he's going to die,
Mhm.
he's taking Michael with him.
Yeah, kind of going back to treating Michael, like, the supernatural element just sort of makes him like a monster in this movie. Like, it's very the ending of Halloween 2 from '81 is so similar to those old, like, even those older, like, Universal movies where it kind of came down to sacrifice sometimes.
Yeah.
That the hero just sort of, like, realizing, oh great, like I'm the reason why this thing happened, or I have some hand in it. You know, we both need to
So he's got to
we
right
both
the
need to
wrong.
go.
Yeah, he's got to, he's got to correct the situation.
You have to create balance, right? By
Hmm.
taking both folks out. Dean Renner with the 9.99 super chat. Thank you so much, Dean. Really appreciate you coming by and hanging out with us. You know, a couple nights here within this last week or so. And he says, great stream, great topics, great comparisons. Thank you so much, man. Really appreciate you.
Dean had a lot of really insightful comments tonight.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for just being a part of this and helping to correct me when I'm wrong and say things that aren't necessarily correct. So that's what makes these live streams so fun, is having everyone's ability to chime in, and
Yeah.
it's a discussion between all of us. I know it's me and Davey up here, but it's not as interesting if you guys aren't here. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dean. And yeah, you guys were, you know, Mark brings it up. You guys were amazing in the chat, just chiming in with your thoughts. I think there were times when we were sort of like, you know, at least myself, as I'm discussing it, I'm looking at what you guys are saying and I'm like, man, am I wrong on this one? And then just sort of like
Yeah.
rethinking it. So it was really cool. Yeah, to do this, as a big group. And I guess we might as well just close out the poll right now. We're at 73 votes, and 1981 wins with 88% to 12% for Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. So thank you to everybody that contributed in the poll as well. If you guys are watching after the fact, let us know your thoughts in the comments below, of course. And to make sure you don't miss Mark's stream with Tyler later on this month, click the link in the description below to subscribe to Mark's channel, Tales from the Shelf. Don't want to miss it.
You guys actually got me to 1,150 subs tonight. So,
Hell
1,150,
yeah.
1,152, which is like 5 or 6 more than I had at the beginning of this. So,
Boom.
thank you so much to all you guys, and
Love
thank
it.
you to Davey for having me on, man. It's always so much fun talking movies with you, bro.
Absolutely. Yeah, always a blast, Mark. I think like we're very it's so funny. We grew up miles, thousands of miles apart, you know.
Yeah.
You would just never know when you end up chit-chatting with somebody that's like in this fandom that you would have, you know, so much in common with you know, it feels like talking to you about these movies just feels so natural. So it's really
for
awesome.
sure. We're definitely very in sync. I don't think between this and our Alien stream, I don't think we ever had like a dissenting opinion. Like we were always on the same page with each criteria, which is kind of nuts. I kept waiting for it to happen tonight, but it never did. So
I thought it was going to happen at some point too. Like after we were 6-0, I was like, all right, some of these are going to be, they're going to splinter. Don't worry. We'll keep it up and we'll find something at some point.
Yeah. Eventually we will butt heads about something. We just haven't found the right movie yet.
And guys, let us know in the chat before we head out here, or if you're watching after the fact, let us know in the comments, what 2 movies do you want to see us pit against one another next time around? Like we could do, I mean, shit, I was even thinking like legacy sequels, like you could do H2O versus H18. You could do, you could even jump to a different franchise. We've already talked about Halloween. We could do like the final chapter versus Jason Lives, like something fun like that.
That's
like movies that are, you know, so close and so beloved for different reasons, and just kind of do this you know, similar kind of format here with all of that.
Here's one. What about like Creepshow versus Trick or Treat, 2 horror anthologies that are pretty well loved? That could be a possibility.
That's a great idea too. Yeah, absolutely.
We'll talk more off camera, but yeah, I'm glad 81 wound up winning. It feels right. But like I said, it was way closer than I think people thought it would be. And I think we were both very fair to 2009, because as the poll would suggest, it's perhaps not a well-liked movie, but you know, it's better than it gets credit for. And I would encourage anyone who hasn't seen it in a while to watch it again. It's on Shudder, and it is October. So yeah, if you haven't seen it in a while, go watch it again. You know, you might come away from it with a deeper appreciation, which is what happened to me. So
Yeah, I think so. I think that's one of the big takeaways. You know, I'm always going to sing the praises of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 because I love movies that take chances, especially when they're in a franchise where you can have like a traditional Michael Myers experience with a whole bunch of the other movies in the franchise. And I think that's one of the reasons why I really like Halloween Ends as well, because it's something that's different. So, you know, I've got like 10 other Michael Myers movies or whatever, or probably about 8 that are, you know, similar enough
Yeah,
to where like I like the ones that kind of stand out and take a little bit of a chance there for sure.
100%, 100%. A lot of people are throwing out a lot of ideas for us, so we might have to write some of these down. I'm
Oh
seeing.
shit.
I'm seeing. Let's see. We got a lot here. H2O versus Halloween Ends. Halloween 2 versus Halloween Kills. I don't know that we would do Halloween 2 again. I'm kind of sick of saying Halloween 2. I think I'm good on that. But
Yep, there you go.
we Rob Zombie's '07 versus Friday the 13th '09. I think that would just wind up being a blowout in Friday the
Mhm.
13th's favor. I really don't like his first Halloween. Um,
Yeah. TCM Dean brings if we just did Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Friday the 13th '09, those are both Marcus Nispel movies.
yeah.
I think those two are more evenly matched than putting
Yes.
Halloween '07 in there for
Yeah, once
sure.
you throw Halloween in there, you'd have to find an equally bad movie to kind of be like, what is the lesser of two evils here?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I'll have to write some of these down. You know, once the replay is up, I think I can jump back in as well and get them
Yeah,
all.
yeah, we should be able
But
to see the comments again.
And I just wanted to say what's up really quick before we head out to Matt from Mad Blood jumping in and saying what's up. And of course, everyone in here is, you know, saying that Mad Blood's got a great channel. You
Hmm.
know, he really does. Matt's channel is popping off the last few months or so. And he's going to be hopping on to Late Night with the Davey here in just a couple weeks, I believe on the 23rd of October. So keep an eye out for that, everyone. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us, everyone that's you know, been subbed for a while, or if you're brand new and this was your first time, welcome and thank you for checking out our live stream here. Please don't forget to, you know, leave the video a like if you enjoyed this. Share it with somebody that you think would like this kind of thing. Do you have a Rob Zombie Halloween 2 fan in your life that might enjoy a little positive discussion about one of their favorite films? This is the video to share. And of course, go on over to Tales from the Shelf. Give Mark a sub so we can see that sub count just tick on up for him. What do you got coming up in the immediate future on your channel, Mark?
I'm in the script writing process of writing of a little mini video essay on what makes the original Halloween from 1978 so scary,
Mm,
and so effective. And some of it we talked about here, but it's definitely there's a lot of meat on that bone, and
hmm.
it's perhaps things that we all maybe already know, but it's interesting to look at it from the perspective of just that first movie, which is something that I think is worth doing because
Hmm.
and it's actually it's easier to look at it through a bit more narrow of a lens and kind of just
Yeah.
focus on one movie and forget all this other shit and let's just focus on this. So that's the next video I have coming out. That should be hopefully within the next week. And then beyond that, I have a few ideas for some October themed scary stuff, maybe some physical media things that we could talk about, Halloween related movies, and then I'm gonna have something for Texas Chainsaw coming out as well. Another mini sort of video essay, something in like the 15-minute range. You know, nothing too dense, but I wanted to shout out that movie because it's celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. So
Yeah. On
October.
Friday?
I don't know when the actual anniversary is specifically, like down to the day, but it is a 74 film. So that is yeah that turned. I actually saw it in the movie theater last week, which was really cool.
That's got to be wild. Yeah, I've never seen that one in the theater, but oh my God,
It
what a
was it
good
was
movie. I
great.
fucking love that movie.
It was great. The music in that is like there is no music. It's like this ambient sort of industrial sound effects,
Hmm.
and it stood out a lot more in the theater. It was really cool. I really had a great time seeing that. So yeah,
Oh yeah.
that was a long answer as I'm known to do. But yeah, there's some Halloween stuff coming out on the channel this month. So if that's interesting to you, definitely go and hit the notification bell and the subscriber bell, all that fun stuff.
Hell yeah. Yeah, and then guys, I mean, for me, I'll be on tomorrow over on Frank's Media and Reviews. You know, talking 80s nostalgia as far as like horror movies go, you know, favorite villains, movies, all that kind of stuff, practical effects. So just a bit of a celebration of that era of horror. That's going to be, I believe, 10 p.m. Eastern is when that one's kicking off here tomorrow. And then, of course, I'll be back on this channel over here on Davey Deathray channel on Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern for Late Night with the Davey. We've got Vincent DeSanti from Womp Stomp
Hell
Films
yeah, dude.
is going to be on with us. So that'll be really fun, talking some Friday the 13th, talking a little bit about what Vin has going on in his life and, you know, with Womp Stomp and everything. And yeah, probably just have some spooky season fun there with Vin. So really looking forward to that. Yeah, guys, you have been awesome. Thank you so much to everybody who hung out with us here, participated in the chat and the discussion. Everyone that's watching after the fact, thank you so much. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. To all my subs, really appreciate you guys a whole hell of a lot. All the channel members, you guys are absolute rock stars. And really appreciate that $9.99 super chat there, Dean. I am pumped to have you hanging out and part of the community. You guys are amazing. And thank most of all to our guy, Mark from Tales from the Shelf. Always a pleasure, Mark. Let's hook up again sometime in the near future and have another one of these versus battles. So yeah, guys, he's been Mark from Tales from the Shelf, and I've been and will continue being Davey Deathray. Take care.